Guys, welcome to this video. I'm really excited. We're going to do like a roundtable kind of panel style video here. And I've invited some partners of mine and some close friends of mine, investors in the real estate community that are very active, doing lots of deals, and also happen to be licensed agents. They hold a current real estate license in their respective markets. So we've got Chris Allen in the Pensacola kind of panhandle Gulf Coast of Florida, Jordan Budd in the Salem, Winston, North Carolina area, and then Ingrid Hernandez in Maricopa County or kind of Phoenix, probably Phoenix market.
Yeah, Arizona market. I go down to Tucson and up to Flagstaff. I'm flipping one right now in Flag. Mm-hmm.
That's a big market. So you're covering some geography there. That's great. Yeah. And the discussion that I want to have with you guys and invite Chris and Ingrid and Jordan to be part of this conversation is to talk about having a real estate license and also being an active wholesaler, even an active investor. And this has been a topic that's been controversial for as long as I've been in real estate for 20 years. I got my real estate license when I first started 20 years ago, because at the time, if you didn't have access to the MLS, you really didn't have access to very many tools. Today, there's a lot more tools available. So I never really participated a whole lot as an agent, like an active agent trying to get listings and be a buyer's agent much. I mostly did it for investing purposes to have access to the MLS. That was my mindset at the time. And as an active investor, what would happen is, every year the broker would pull me in and say, hey, you're not really working as a sales agent. You're not out there bringing a lot of commissions into the brokerage. Why don't you leave? And I'd be asked to leave. And so every year I was moving brokerages. And so finally, I got my broker's license and then became my own broker so I could, have total control over what I did. And so I've had my broker's license for about 15 years now. Recently maybe a couple of years ago, moved over to my own personal brokerage in Michigan with a handful of agents under the Real Brokerage. And I know both Jordan, Ingrid, and Chris are all real agents as well. Jordan actually helps me build our team that we have, kind of like a nationwide team. And I know Ingrid and Chris both have teams as well, because Real's great. You can kind of build a team as well. And they have a pay structure around that, a revenue structure around that, which is really cool. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about this. Let's have an open dialogue and a conversation around this. And first, let's talk about a little bit of why there's this, maybe some misconceptions, or why there's this idea out there, and some of it might be valid. Let's talk about it. But why is there this narrative that if you're an investor, especially a wholesaler, if you're an investor, why you should not get a real estate license? And this is still taught pretty heavily. It's very prevalent even still today, that an investor should not hold a real estate license, that it's detrimental to your investing to have a real estate license. And so let's start with Ingrid. Ingrid, why do you think that that's a narrative in the marketplace?
I think it's a narrative in the marketplace because if we could work a little bit of the context, the wholesaling game generally has attracted folks, with all kinds of backgrounds. And to be frank with you, like the folks that I have met, all great people. They may have some blemishes, maybe in their history, their legal history. And so when you come in, if you want to be a licensed agent, that's something that will get exposed. And without having a somewhat of a due process, you may get denied. So wholesaling is just an easy point of entry. Where you don't need to go through those steps of review when somebody else is judging whether or not you can go and feed your family through that business. Do
you mean like you can't become a licensed real estate agent if you have a felony on your record, things like that? Is that what you're referring to?
Yep, there's some folks that absolutely. There's exceptions even when you have a felony, but it all depends on time. Again, other people judging whether or not they feel you still should become a licensed agent. And so over the course of time, knowing that there's that there, and honestly, until folks like you, Jerry, and Pace, and some other of those types of investors who are really super collaborative, it became very separated. You have your wholesalers here who don't share with each other pre-Pace and Jerry times, and then agents too. I mean, the meanest people who've ever been mean to me have been agents. So, you know, so when you have that sort of paradox you're living in, it kind of creates its own culture, and the culture has been the licensed versus the not licensed, and so they perpetuate some of those understandings of not going to be licensed.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And if you think about it, so like, you know, both the agent and the wholesaler are transacting real estate for a fee. But I'll ask you this, Chris. So what's the conflict, right? It is true. There's sort of a conflict of interest. If you're a licensed agent and you're transacting, and you're a wholesaler and you're transacting, what is the conflict of interest that causes this animosity sometimes?
You know, I think it comes from, you know, they're both, you know, honestly, fee-based people, but you're marketing to the same sellers, right? People who want to sell. One might be willing to take a discount. No, one might want retail, but that same agent could probably list that discounted property and still get an offer, you know, if priced accordingly. So, you know, agents see it as competition, and wholesalers, you know, they get frustrated because, you know, an agent will come in and say, yeah, I can list this for, you know, retail. And that seller a lot of times is like, oh, great, you know. So I think that's where some of that animosity comes from, is they're swimming in the same pool.
Yeah. So then what tends to happen is you've got the licensed agent on this hand, and they're being held to a standard. There's a lot of oversight on them. They've got a lot of regulation and restriction on what they can and can't do. And so they're over here transacting. And then on the other hand, you've got a wholesaler who's got very little oversight, no kind of formal training that they had to go through, no kind of state requirements, right? No code of conduct or really anything that they have to follow. So there tends to be like this side over here, you know, performing under certain types of guidelines and rules. And then the wholesaler, that's kind of the wild, wild west. Now we're seeing a lot of this change in recent years. There's been a lot of regulation that's passed that's now requiring to wholesale that certain rules around it, but that you get a real estate license. And so we're starting to see some of this, you know, attempt to bridge the two. But if I were to think about it, and Jordan, I'll get your input on this here in a second too, you know, the real conflict here is representation, right? So a real estate agent is representing the seller's best interest, meaning their objective is to get the highest price for the seller. And that's very clear. There's very stringent guidelines around disclosure to that seller, and there's agreements that are being made that agent is looking out for the best interest of the seller. Now, on the other hand, the wholesaler is looking out for their own best interest, right? They're a principal in the contract. They're looking to make a profit. They're representing themselves in their best interest, not the sellers. So if we look at it from that context, there is sort of a conflict of interest. So if you're licensed and you're a wholesaler, you could see here where there could be an issue. There could be something going on here where the seller could be harmed in some way if the seller isn't fully aware of what's going on, of what hat you're wearing in that position. And I think that's what's caused a lot of this conflict. So then what the community says, the investing community says is, hey, just don't get your real estate license. Don't even do it, because now you're going to be held to a certain standard. It's going to limit what you're able to do, what you're able to say. And it's going to cause issues for you if you have a real estate license. But in reality, I don't think that's the case. What it needs to do is you just need to do it correctly and do it properly. So Jordan, maybe touch on that a little bit. Like if you do have an active real estate license and you are a wholesaler, how do you wear the wholesaler hat while also being a current real estate agent? How do you do that in a safe way that's protecting seller, protecting you? All the parties are aware.
Yeah, hold yourself to a higher standard. That's really my philosophy. I mean, that's kind of how I go about it. I enjoy being held to a higher standard. You know, I take pride in meeting with sellers and other investors and agents, and being somebody that can perform on contracts, being somebody who can, you know, we locked up 3 deals today. I know we were texting about the other deal but anyways, you know, I went to that seller and presented him his options. You know, I said, look, you've got 3 amazing opportunities right here, 3 parcels all right next to each other. You could definitely go on market. We could definitely make this easy. So, you know, my thought process is look out for their best interest And a lot of people just think that that means list it and get a higher number, but that is not always looking out for somebody's best interest. Sometimes what's in their best interest is a bad situation in their life or whatever it may be, or back taxes or pre-foreclosure coming or whatever. Sometimes that's their best exit. And then so you just switch your hats. But my main thing is disclosure. Always look out for their best interest, always present the options, and just figure out what's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I mean, honestly, from the real estate commission, from the board's perspective, one of their biggest things with agents is disclosure. So no matter what you're doing, if you're acting as an investor or an agent, you have to disclose to that seller that you have a real estate license, right? That you hold a current real estate license, and that you're adhering to those standards. And I love what you said there, Jordan, because that's exactly what we should be doing. I think the best wholesalers, when they sit down with a seller, they custom tailor a solution that meets their needs. And sometimes, like you said, a fast, convenient cash offer is the right thing because they need to solve that problem immediately. And so that low cash offer is the right solution. If the urgency is not there and they've got time and they can wait and they're willing to maybe do some more things, then maybe listing that property and going on market and finding a retail buyer and doing more to get more is the right solution. But that's not, it's never a one size fits all. It's you being able to identify what's the best thing for this seller and how can I participate in helping that seller get the right solution. And so I feel like as a licensed wholesaler, it just gives me more options. It gives me more ability to help sellers do the right thing for them if I can switch hats. And so the disclosure part comes in where that seller has to be fully aware and verbally, like told, and in writing who you represent, whether you represent them with your real estate license or you represent yourself as an investor. And this is where I think that not being done correctly is where we've seen a lot of issues, or where there have been issues and problems, is when a seller does not know that how you're representing them or you. They're unaware of that. You didn't make that clear to them, and they're confused about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what the contract they're signing is doing. So when they're unclear about that and your license, that's where you could get in trouble and be held liable. Now, the issue here, Ingrid, go ahead, Ingrid.
I was going to add that, or they may have been well informed, but had a mistake on how they actually ingested that information. One of the best practices that you could have is to record that disclosure process with your sellers. I love that you're saying when you wear that many hats, that's literally the example. And I don't just say it in words, but I do it in gestures. When I'm in front of a seller, I gesture. I have my investor hat right now. I don't have your best interests in mind. I have my best interests in mind. And here's how I would buy this so that I can make money on a flip or buy and hold or whatever. And then I literally gesture. I take my hat off and I go, okay, now I'm gonna put my real estate agent's hat. This is what I would list your house for, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And if you're recording that, if you're gesturing that, I think those are all great best practices, along with leveraging to do any training internally, you can use those types of conversations, but that's how you hold yourself to higher standards. I love what you said, Jordan.
Yeah. And, part of that conversation. So what I'll say with every seller is I'll point blank ask, why don't you list this property for sale with a real estate agent? Why don't you go on market and try to get a retail buyer, or at least the highest paying buyer in the marketplace? Because on the MLS, it's going to be public now. It's going to be on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, and all the sites. That is going to draw in the highest paying buyer. Why aren't you doing that? Why are we talking about possibly an investor buying this property? And I ask them that. And I ask it because I want to understand where they're coming from. And maybe that is what they should do, but I'm trying to identify that. And then when they come back and they say, well, I don't have time. I don't want to pay commissions. I don't want a real estate agent. I don't want showings in my house. I don't want, they give you the reasons why they don't want to do that. Now you're like, okay, well, there is another solution. We can take care of this. We can make it fast and convenient as is, all the things, right, that we say as wholesalers. And is that the right solution? If it is, you need to understand, seller, that that type of offer that's all cash, it's going to be a lower price than you could get if you're willing to wait longer, go on market, maybe do some repairs, maybe get this place so it can show better, clean it up, do these certain things, and you could get a higher price. And so I feel like if I'm going to have integrity and I'm going to be a wholesaler that is honoring my real estate license, that I'm keeping in compliance with my code of conduct and all the things that I've agreed to as a licensed agent, then I have to have that conversation. I have to let the seller aware of what all his options are. And, and there's other options too. There's novations, there's creative financing, but am I letting that seller know there's multiple solutions here for you, which one is right for you? And if on market with an agent is the right solution, then we can help you do that. Or if you're not licensed, you can say, we can get you a real estate agent that can help you with that. But that's wholesaling with integrity, in my opinion. And so guys, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also think, to support the claim that it's to your benefit as an investor to have it, you'll make more money doing that. Because if you just are a wholesaler, as soon as they say, yeah, I want that retail option, you're limited to the fact that, you're just going to get a referral fee. But if you give them, a CMA and you have what, you think you could sell the house at, you can take down that listing yourself. So you can capture more of your marketing spend by being able to, target each individual lead and have a solution for all of their circumstances, even if it's you taking down that listing.
Well, and that's a good point. Now, remember, if you're to get a referral from another agent, you yourself have to hold a license, because an agent can't pay a referral fee without a license. So even if you don't want to do it, having your real estate license and you don't want to do the listing, you could refer that to another agent that you have a relationship with. You could split that listing fee, so you still get 1 or 1.5% for the referral and not do the listing yourself. In fact, we do that on low dollar properties because I'm not really interested in doing a listing for $80,000 at a 3% commission. Probably not a good use of time, but there's another agent that will gladly do that. Now, if it's a $400,000 or $500,000 listing, I'll gladly take that listing on, earn 3% and make, $12,000 in a commission. So, and these are leads. I love what you said, Chris. The reason why I'm such a proponent of this is because if you're an active wholesaler, so wholesaler number one, agent as a backup option, then you're spending money on marketing. You're getting in front of a seller who wants to sell either on the phone or on appointment. And then you identify that they're not super motivated and that they want retail. And what most wholesalers do is they're like, unmotivated seller, I'll put them in a follow-up sequence, dead lead, move on. Well, you just wasted all that money and time and effort to be on. You're there. Why would you not provide them a solution to list their property if that's the right thing and where they're at, right? So you're just throwing money away. It blows my mind that every single wholesaler is not licensed and not offering to list properties to the unmotivated retail sellers, right? So, do you guys agree? Jordan, do you agree with that?
Yeah, you saw I think I sent it to you, the post that we did the other day on Instagram, and it's me and a guy that I collaborate here with. He's an elite agent with Real, and he, helps some people in our downline, and he handles the retail side of things. And, that was an example. We did that intentionally, because we're really working with agents locally and we're starting to get a lot of deals from them. And that conversation went, hey, cash doesn't work, creative doesn't work, let's list it. And literally, that was a lead, just a regular lead that came from direct mail or cold calling or something from a home buyer, and worked him for a little while. The guy actually called me back and he's like, dude, I just want to list it. Can you just put this on the market? And I was like, absolutely. Called the TC. She did all the paperwork, called my buddy. Hey man, let's meet the photographer, do some marketing material, and then boom. And so that's now a listing. It's already under contract for $325. I don't know what the commission is on that, but we'll get 3.5%. That pays me, it pays you, Jerry, it pays, Colton and all the other people in our, so it's just a win-win-win for everybody. And that was an option that most people would check the little check mark thing on the CRM that says retail. or refer to an agent or whatever.
Yeah.
So just a good tool. I love it.
Powerful. I mean, if that alone just paid your marketing budgets, that would be extremely powerful for a wholesaler. And the thing is, guys, is this is something that I'm going to be talking quite a bit about this year is to wholesalers specifically is you better have multiple tools in your toolbox when you go on appointment or when you're talking to sellers, because not only are you missing opportunities if you don't, but your competition is. And if you are just doing the low cash, scenario for super motivated sellers, and that's your only tool in your toolbox, you're going to really struggle in this industry because your competition is offering sellers better options that pay them more, like Novations, like Creative, like Listing, if that's the right thing. And so you're going to be either forced out of business or forced to adapt. So it's that important.
Yeah.
So now what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the logistics of this, because there are logistics involved with this. And we've been having some conversations prior to this recording. And what even spurred doing this video was I saw a post in the Sub2 group, Ingrid, where they were saying, hey, logistically, how do I be licensed with my broker? Most brokers, they don't understand wholesaling. They don't want anything to do with it. They look at it like a liability. And so we're all with Real. Real has right in their agreement, agent broker agreement, that you cannot wholesale. It's right in there. And so first of all, Ingrid, why are brokers concerned about this? Why is this an issue? And then brokers like Real have an addendum. Let's talk about the addendum. And these are just things, guys, that whether you're with Real or you're with any other broker, there's some things that you're going to want to do with that broker so that they're informed and aware of what you're doing. You're going to want to make sure you have some things in place so that you don't run into issues with wholesaling with a real estate license.
Yeah. Like any great relationship, your relationship with your brokerage should be built in honesty, right? And honesty means making them aware of your dealings, like how you're investing. So every time I talk to folks who want to join my downline, I always tell them to get a wholesaler's addendum, even if they haven't thought about being an investor yet, because once they go to our mastermind meetings that we have on a weekly basis, all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's another way I can make income beyond serving as an agent. And I think brokerages that think about the agent's ability to feed their family and to build legacy and all of that, they should allow them more options like wholesaling and investing and things like that. Now, I also recognize that most brokerages, and I would say if not all of them, whether they want to admit it or not, through their E&Os, which is their error and omission insurance, do not cover what are essentially sub-2s. Sub-2s are just fancy wraparounds. They really are. That's it. The wraparound mortgages. And because those E&O insurances don't cover it, the brokerages don't want to be involved with those creative deals. And so what we've coached other agents is, look, at the end of the day, if this is going to serve our seller or our buyer's needs the most, we should be okay with removing ourselves as their fiduciary if those buyers and sellers are okay moving forward without us. And these are circumstances where somebody might lose their house and any potential equity they have if they don't take that choice. I mean, those are the conditions by which I've been in some of those deals. There was a deal in Texas where an active soldier was already in arrears $6,000, could not sell his house because the condition of the property was really, really bad. Creative deal was going to stabilize things for him the best, and he was able to still get equity out. Otherwise, a cash offer would mean he would walk with $0 in his pocket. So it was his best scenario. And as you may know, if you're an active duty soldier and you go through a foreclosure, you may not get full clearance in the military. That's one thing that will hold you back. So part of our hope was to not have him go through that in case he ever wanted to move up ranks. But anywho, we have to look at that. We have to look at those sellers. So when we talk about brokerages being concerned about these creative deals or wholesaling, I really think it's up to us, you, Chris, Jerry, Jordan, to continue those conversations with our brokers because they grew up in the same cultures we have. And show them how this is not the case. I never even knew what wholesaling was, and I was an agent because brokerages did not expose me to that. I can't, I have been to so many classes that they made you go to, or they wanted you to be a part of. Never, not once did I talk about wholesaling. I didn't even know it existed. And so when you treat something like that, like you put it aside so much and you don't open up your ability to understand it more, then you're going to lose out on opportunities.
Yeah, so that's great. So I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit of what you said there, Ingrid. So when you, and by the way, maybe we should clarify this in case you don't know. So if you're not licensed right now, you may not know this, but when you get your salesperson license, that's your real estate license to act as an agent, you have to go under a broker. And a broker has higher credentials, higher licensing, and the broker now is responsible for you. So technically, the broker should be looking over your shoulder. They should be looking over your closing. They should be making sure that you're transacting correctly as an agent. And by being an agent under a broker, that broker then gets a percentage of your commissions. And it's completely negotiable. Everywhere does it a little differently. Sometimes you meet a certain commission payout to your broker, and then from then on, everything you get is 100%. But the broker gets a piece of your commission as an agent. And for that, you get services and benefits and support and things like that. And again, every brokerage is a little bit differently. But the point here is you cannot hold a real estate license unless you're under a broker. And so the broker you go under may be wholesaler friendly or may not be wholesaler friendly. Like Ingrid said, be honest with your broker. You've got to tell your broker, hey, I'm out there doing creative deals, or I'm out there doing wholesale deals. Is this an issue? And what do we need to do? Now, some of the things that the broker may do is that broker may say, I want nothing to do with you because you're a liability now. The broker may say, hey, that's fine as long as we have some things in place here. And that's what Real does. Real says, hey, in our general agreement, we want to have an exclusion to wholesaling, meaning we don't want to be responsible as the broker for you wholesaling. Now, if you ask for it, they probably won't give it to you. This is something Ingrid and I were talking about. But if you ask for it, they'll give you a wholesaling addendum that says, okay, we'll allow you to wholesale under these certain circumstances. And then they've got some criteria that you need to meet. If they allow you to do that, if your broker allows you to do wholesaling, then what that means now is what you need to find out is, okay, am I responsible for paying splits to my broker for my wholesale transactions, or am I on my own outside of my brokerage? And that's the number one question you need to be clear about. So what Real says is they say, hey, sign this addendum, we'll let you wholesale, but we are not taking any responsibility for you. Not only that, but we want you to have, there's a couple things here. Maybe we can talk through that, but they're basically saying, we're not responsible for you. You're not going to pay us splits, but you better meet some of these certain requirements and we'll allow you.
So you have to indemnify Real. So meaning don't go blaming Real for what the wholesale, what you couldn't do in your business. Yeah. You have to hold your own E&O insurance under that umbrella.
You have to be under an LLC,
and you have to transact in an LLC, which is all great practices.
Which is things you should be doing anyway, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because remember, as an agent, you act under your name. So you get paid directly as a, independent contractor 1099. As an agent, what Real does, and this is probably how most brokers are doing this, is they're saying, okay, your wholesale deals need to be transacted under a separate LLC, separate from you personally as an agent. And then what were the other ones, Ingrid? You have to have your own insurance. So this says, I got it pulled up right now, $1 million, and you have to add the brokerage as an additionally insured and provide proof of that. So what they're doing is they're saying, if you get sued as a wholesaler because you transacted and you get sued, we can't get sucked into that. We can't be held responsible. And that's the indemnification as well. And that's kind of it, right? I think those are the big ones. I'm just looking right now. LLC. So
always disclose your license. So you also have to always disclose and say, hey, I'm even if it's a wholesale deal, you have to say that.
Yep. The other one is, you can only do it if you're complying with the state laws. So certain states have laws around wholesaling now. Some of them are stricter than others, but you got to make sure you're following that as well. And if you don't know, I think I've done content on almost every state that's passed regulation. most of it is around how you market your contract. You can't publicly market a contract without a real estate license, is what most of the real estate laws are that are being passed. Some of them are tougher than that, but anyway, that's kind of that. So again, guys, just to kind of recap this, what you'll have to do is you'll go take your class. Every state has a different requirement of hours. You have to pass the class, then you have to go pass the state exam. Once you pass the state exam, then you go and you hang your license under a broker. And if you're an investor, you're going to want to tell your broker, hey, I'm doing these types of deals. I'm doing creative, I'm doing wholesaling, I'm doing whatever. Is that an issue? If it's not an issue, then you'll probably need to sign some kind of exclusions that allow you to do that outside of the broker so that they're aware. Don't just go do wholesales on the sly and your broker doesn't know what you're doing. Don't do that. That's where you're going to get into trouble. And then you still have to, the state doesn't care that you're wholesaling and that you signed an indemnification or anything. The state is still going to require that you always disclose that you have a real estate license. It's a rule to protect the public that they know you hold a real estate license. And other than that, I think logistically, is there anything else? By the way, guys, if you want a copy of that Reels addendum, just leave a comment below. We can give that to you. You could probably take that to your broker and say, hey, if you don't have something, here's something that I think is fair that works. And another thing too, I want to talk about real quickly here is, so I created additional disclosures, and I know all of you guys, we've talked about this and you're all very careful about this, but I have like a profit disclosure. I have an agency disclosure. I have an equity disclosure. And I don't know if you guys use this one either, but I love this one. This basically says the seller cannot come back and make a claim on any equity in the property. And this has actually been something that's happened. I had a title company one time, and they said, we do not want to insure your wholesale deal because we've had a claim on equity. And I said, what is a claim on equity? And they said, well, basically what happened is the transaction went through. The seller found out that the wholesaler resold the property for more money, and the seller did a claim on I don't know how this would be a title issue, but they made a claim that they were not aware that the property was undersold and that there was equity in the property. And so now that title company, since it happened once, they don't want to now do any of these types of deals. So when that happens to you, then you correct and you make change. So these are just additional addendums over the top that I, as a licensed agent, I want to dot the I's and cross the T's. I want to be super clear in everything I'm doing. If it means I lose a deal because I told the seller that I'm going to try to make a profit, so be it. Like, I don't care. I'd rather not have somebody come back on me in the future about a deal I did saying, well, I didn't know you were going to make money. I didn't know there was equity. I didn't know you had a real estate license. I don't want any of that to come back to haunt me. And I think the one thing too that I want to say here is, like, I've gone on these boards where there's this big argument and debate over license. And the number one argument I see that the non-licensed community says, like, don't get a license, is that you're going to have to adhere to higher standards. And my response to that every time is, so let me get this straight. You want to be shady and you want to be dishonest and you want to transact with sellers dishonestly? Is that what you're saying? Because the code of conduct and all the stuff is just good business practice, and it's treating sellers fair and honest. Why is this something that you don't want to agree to? Like, everyone should be doing that anyway. Even if you're not licensed, you should be following the same code of conduct with sellers. So that argument just doesn't sit well with me, that I don't want to adhere to standards or certain guidelines or, code of conduct. And Jordan said that, he said, I'm doing that anyway. So it's not like I'm doing something different with my real estate license that I wasn't doing before. I'm trying to do right to people anyway. Any thoughts on that, guys?
The only other thing I would add, go ahead, Chris.
You're all good. No, I was just saying, yeah, I mean, I feel like, if you're not doing transactions ethically, and if you're taking advantage of somebody who's in, a pinch or not in a great situation, you probably shouldn't be in the industry to start with. I mean, they always say, your home is your most emotional purchase you'll ever make, and so if you're not going to adhere to, guidelines, you probably shouldn't be in the first place. One of the arguments that I hear too is that, it makes you a weak negotiator if you have your license, because you'll always just fall back to, all right, let me just, list it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you're presenting options, it should be, again, in the seller's best interest, so if you give them the list option, if you give them the cash offer option, if you give them the novation option, there's not a ton of negotiating there. It's, they're picking from one of the predetermined options you've created for them, and that value that you're giving, there's no negotiating there. You're like, all right, this is my cash price, this is my list price, this is my novation price, so that's the other argument I have heard, is that it makes your acquisitions managers weak,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what happened, the argument here is, and this is just wearing the wholesaler's hat, when you go in on an appointment or you're going to the close, what we're taught as wholesalers, and I teach this too, is you anchor low, right? You go in with your low cash offer. That's like the bottom number. And you anchor there. And then sometimes you're willing to walk from that number. And so if you have listed retail in the back of your mind, then the worry is you'll just take the easy layups and you'll just take listings every time, and you won't get that low cash offer that has the bigger spreads. But I agree 100% with you, Chris. It's not like we're trying to take a retail seller and convert them into a cash buyer. Like, that's, first of all, the seller's not going to do that. If they're not motivated, they're not taking that low cash offer. It's not like, if I don't anchor low, I'm going to leave all this money on the table. I don't believe that. I think if it's the right situation and they've got very high intent, high motivation, it's Friday and their foreclosure auction's on Monday, their only solution even available to them is a cash offer with a fast closing, right? And so every scenario is a little bit differently. Novations don't really work unless the seller has time, at least 90 days. They don't really work unless the property's in fair condition, like it's dated and livable. Otherwise, it's not really a good fit. Creative doesn't really work unless the seller can wait to get some or all of their money. So the seller's they're gonna present their situation, their level of motivation. And then if you're a good transactor, I don't even know what you want to call it, if you're a good real estate investor, you're able to identify and then put them in the right solution. And what's wonderful is we can make money serving sellers, giving them the highest price that fits their situation the best, and we can make money doing it. Any way we look at it, whether it's low cash, novation, creative, list it, we're providing the best solution for their situation. And that's what I think it means to be a good investor in 2024 and beyond.
Mic drop. I agree. 100%.
Yep. Okay. Well, good. Well, guys, if you have questions anywhere around this, please leave a comment. I know all three of these guys, Jordan, Chris, and Ingrid, are super go-givers, very active in the investing community, willing to help and serve and do whatever they can to help people out. If you guys are okay, I'll put your maybe your social media or how to contact you guys in the comment in the description box below. If you guys want to reach out to either Ingrid, Jordan, or Chris, if you guys are okay with that, that would be awesome. And again, I'll put some links too. I'll put those disclosure forms. They're free. I'll give them to you for free, just a download link. If you guys want to take a look at those and start using those. If you're interested in being involved in my real team, like if you have a real estate license or you go get a real estate license, then I'll put a link there as well. You'll end up talking to Jordan and he'll see if it's a good fit for you. And other than that, guys, just keep always doing what's right for sellers and everybody that you're working with. And that pays off huge dividends. You'll win big in this business. You'll make a lot of money. You'll bless lives. And it's just a fun, I wake up every day so excited to do what I do. And I know you guys do. And if you just bring that passion and energy and love, then it will always come back, I think, 100% tenfold to you. So, and again, thank you, Jordan, Ingrid, and Chris for your time and sharing your wisdom here. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.